What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Yard Podcast. I'm your host, Randy,
And I'm your host, Konu.
and as always, we are going to keep you guys up to date with everything going on. Although it's nothing really new, it's the same stuff we've been talking about now we're on episode 8, so at least 2 months now. All these proposals going on. Don't have much Dodger news because there's nothing going on. So, but really quickly, we just want to say thank you to everyone who subscribed and rated the podcast. It means the world to us. It helps other people find the podcast when you guys do that. But honestly, when it comes down to it, I think both of us just really enjoy reading what everyone has to say about the podcast and the ways we can improve. Because at the end of the day, we want to put out the best content possible. So if you guys can review and rate the podcast, we would appreciate it. You can find all of my personal stuff at Randy_Radcliffe. You can find all of Dodger Yard stuff across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all under Dodger Yard.
And you can find my Twitter and Instagram at Michael Konu, MyKalKonu.
So let's get into this. We don't really have, like I said, there's really no Dodger news to be mentioned, but we do have what should have been a bigger day in baseball today. So if you want to touch on that really quickly.
Okay, yeah. So today is the MLB draft, the first round of the MLB draft, and unfortunately, because everything going on this year, it's only 5 rounds. So it'll be finished tomorrow. Tomorrow's rounds 2 through 5. Today's round 1. So I will be watching to go through all that, and then next week I'll bring to you who the Dodgers drafted, and depending on the undrafted free agents, I'll probably go over a few of those as well because you can find some real gems after rounds 5.
So I don't pay much attention to the draft, so he will be taking care of all of that information for you guys, and he'll be talking about it on next week's episode. So we'll see what the Dodgers do, and hopefully we've got some good young guys coming up because it's definitely going to be a bummer losing a lot of those guys at the back end of the draft. Sometime that's where you find your sleeper picks. So we'll see what happens there. But only other Dodger news, I guess, really isn't news. It was just something I wanted to talk about really quickly. If you listen to Big Swing Podcast, which is Ross Stripling's podcast, he had David Price on his episode yesterday. They kind of spoke about everything that's going on in the country. And Stripling had some questions for him that I thought were really interesting. And I kind of wonder if baseball seems to think about them because I don't think fans really do. But Stripling had asked Price why baseball seems to struggle to get more black athletes involved. And Price had said a lot of it, which makes sense, has to do with kind of the culture being welcomed, whereas in the NBA, NFL, you have a lot more of whether it's the music, the energy's allowed, players are allowed to express themselves a lot more when it comes to NBA and NFL. Baseball really struggles with that. We see it. Unfortunately, it is a very white man's sport, and I think we've all learned over the years that they aren't usually your guys who are showing much emotion. And so baseball's a little bit of a different sport. It's definitely not your exciting sport. You don't have action 24/7 was another thing that David Price brought up. And of course, the equipment, which is always a big deal. Baseball, you can't just have a ball, you can't just have a glove or a bat. You kind of have to have it all to play. You can't really do it by yourself. Whereas if you have a basketball, you can go to a park, find a hoop. You can take a football, find someone to throw it to. You only need the one ball, whereas baseball, like I mentioned, you need a lot. So I don't really know what baseball can do on their end when it comes to the equipment because all of that really is needed. But I think they could pay more attention to the younger kind of generation and what they like and what they're interested in and pay a little bit more attention to what they can do to bring in more people of color into baseball because we desperately need it. And it's a bummer when you hear him get on the podcast and say things like nowadays kids watch their favorite team on TV and they don't get to see anyone that represents them. So, but other than that, that's really the only Dodger stuff we have to talk about.
Can I say something about that?
Of course.
Okay, so the equipment is an issue because it's kind of expensive. Like it's not really affordable, and like you had mentioned, it is also difficult to practice by yourself. Like you can get a basketball for like $20. I don't think you can get a glove for $20. You definitely can't get a bat for $20. The only thing affordable is like a baseball. So that obviously is very difficult, and also they just don't really market to the black communities. They don't. They push everything towards like the upper class kind of communities, and the black communities they don't really push baseball. So I think if they push that a little bit more there to give them another option of things to play, there might be more players coming up.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's not something MLB can really do on their own, but I think they could do a much better job when it comes down to it of kind of
They should invest in those communities.
yeah, exactly, putting more time and effort into those communities and helping them see the game. And a big thing would be not cutting off your fans from watching their team play, but that's a totally different
Right.
conversation. um so
Also, making tickets affordable would be a good
yeah,
start as
no
well.
kidding. Especially, yeah, because it's not cheap to go to a baseball game, and there's freaking 81 home games a season. It should not cost a family $100, $200 to go to a game when you have that many games. I understand football and basketball and hockey being more expensive. There's not as many games. Baseball, I don't get it. There's too many games. Families need to be able to go, and you're taking away minor league baseball in some of those communities where they don't have big league teams. So baseball's kind of shooting themselves in their own foot, which kind of actually unfortunately leads into the next conversation, which is all about the proposals and everything going on. So last week, of course, as soon as we got off our phone call, we talked about the players submitting a proposal. And as soon as we got off the call, that was the proposal that would include a 114 game season. And the owners were not even bothering to reply, counter proposal, anything like that. According to Ken Rosenthal, it just wasn't even worth the owner's time. That's how they felt. Um, so more rejections, kind of what's expected. The one thing we know that players in the league can agree on, which is very few, is the expanded playoffs. Both sides seem to want expanded playoffs and a universal DH because that will help probably keep pitchers a lot healthier trying to instead of having them out there on a short season. So really other than that, that's all. Oh, and I guess I should say they've also agreed on July 10th as an opening day date as long as they can find an agreement in time that would allow them to start then. But both sides have agreed on July 10th as the opening day date, which I think is a Friday if I looked correctly. So let's hope we have baseball on July 10th because we're not having much of anything. Baseball's kind of screwing everything up right now. But on Monday, the league did present a new proposal to players. There's a lot to it. So I'm going to give you the main takeaways. It is kind of a lot, but again, it's all information that's pretty important. So the latest proposal from the owners, it was a 76 game season. They would have up to 8 playoff teams per league. There was no qualifying offer for the players 2020. So the free agents qualifying offer is when the team can offer a player that is going to be a free agent at the end of that season or when the season is over. You can a qualifying offer, which is usually about $17 million. If the player rejects it, no worries. They go on. They can sign. I think you'll probably know a little bit better than this. It's the qualifying offer that is it that what attaches the draft pick? I don't know why I'm blanking on this right now, but
Yeah, the qualifying
okay,
offer is attached to the draft
okay,
pick.
that's what I thought. So they will also be getting rid of that. So that kind of changes up a little bit. The players don't seem to care for that all too much because qualifying offers might actually be a big deal going into next year with the money not going to be nearly as good this year, the revenue. So players aren't necessarily into that right now, I guess you could say. They also did agree that players deemed high-risk individuals are able to opt out of the 2020 season and retain their salaries and service time. However, players that are not deemed high risk would receive neither salary nor service time, which is something the players were actually fighting for. They were okay with not receiving salary, but if a player who is not high risk had decided he wanted to opt out of the season, they were at least trying to get him service time. However, the Players Association did concede to MLB, and they agreed that if you are not a high-risk player, you will not receive pay, nor will you receive service time if you opt out. However, if you are a high-risk individual, you will opt out, or if you decide to opt out, you will retain your salary and their service time. So I'm glad they are at least doing that. From the MLB coronavirus manual, it says this is what they consider high risk. It's some individuals may be more likely to suffer severe illness as a result of coronavirus than others. Individuals who, by virtue of their age or medical history, are at a materially higher risk of complications. So that's kind of part of that. The one other thing that they would have to do is players would also have to sign an acknowledgement of risk before playing. And then players kind of feel like that's a way for them to undermine their right to challenge if MLB fails to provide a safe working environment, which I understand from the players. MLB is pretty much saying we want you to sign this piece of paper that says you know the risk you're taking. You can't really hold us accountable if anything happens. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a really screwy way to mess with your players, because MLB hasn't really even come out and said we're going to do everything we can to keep you guys safe. And you want players to sign an acknowledgement of risk when you can't even say, hey, this is how exactly we're going to take care of you. It just seems kind of like another way for MLB to be a little slimy and do things their way. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. I could see why it upsets players, but obviously they were not happy with that proposal. According to Evan Drellich of The Athletic, the Player Association considered that offer to be worse than the last proposal because it shifts a greater emphasis on risk sharing in the postseason. If there was no postseason, players would receive 50% of the prorated pay, and if there is a postseason, they would receive 75% of their prorated pay. So the players were kind of pissed off that was changing things up based on whether or not they would make the playoffs. They were not a big fan. Jeff Passan kind of broke down all the deals, and what I saw, I don't know, Konu, you can let me know if you saw something different. Based on what I saw, basically MLB hasn't done shit. They haven't made a better offer. It's like maybe $200 million difference, but when it really comes down to it, MLB's offers when it comes to how they want to pay the players basically looks the same across every deal. It's just worded differently. And I don't know if they're wording it differently to try and make the fans look like, hey, we're doing our part. The owners or the players just don't want to agree. And if they just feel like they're doing this because it's the right thing to do. But I don't know. They don't seem to be moving the mark at all there. I don't know. How do you feel about that proposal? Did you feel like that was fair by the league, or did you kind of feel like that was just another, they're just doing what they're supposed to do so that way we can play baseball kind of thing?
Okay, so just to kind of go over everything, the 76 game season is closer to what I would like, so I think that's kind of good. It should be 100% of the already cut prorated salaries, not 75%. So I understand where the players are coming from. The no draft pick compensation is huge for players because that, I believe, that turns a lot of teams off from signing players with that draft pick compensation attached to them. Where I think the bigger problem is, and this is just my opinion, is like players having to sign that risk acknowledgement, basically absolving MLB in case a player gets sick. Now, of course, there is risk, but to me, this kind of feels like that MLB is trying to undermine the players' right to challenge if MLB fails to provide a safe work environment. It seems like MLB is trying to like wash their hands of it. Also, another big issue is saying they don't think the opt-out should apply to players who have immune compromised family members. Now, I know that they've already conceded that, but basically, that's telling them that their families really don't matter. How is that really supposed to go over well? Like players want to play, but health is of the utmost importance for themselves and their families. Now, Of course, players aren't happy with this proposal or any for that matter. Like you had mentioned, it's been the exact same proposal, just worded differently. And I know Jack Flaherty, pitcher of the St. Louis Cardinals, has said those exact sentiments. Plus, losing another 50% off an already prorated deal is ridiculous. I get it. Billionaires stay billionaires by being cheap to employees and trying to keep as much as possible. These players are making you this money. Fans are not coming to games and buying merchandise for the owners. They do to support the team and also their favorite players. Last time I checked, owners aren't robbing home runs or hitting 450-foot bombs. They're at home or sitting in VIP sections, not even paying attention to the game. However, I will say this: both sides, owners and players, really have to stop going to the media and leaking things because that's only making fans more frustrated with this whole process. They're both going to the media hoping to get put in a better light, but it's not working out that way. It's just turning more fans off, if we're being honest. I don't recall any other sport doing this, like basketball, for example. They kind of just had their little meetings, and sure enough, like, I don't know, a few days later, they had a deal in place. And they did all this behind closed doors without leaking things to the media. So, and everybody's mostly happy with all that. And fans aren't fucking exhausted by the whole process. And that's what MLB should be doing. Go behind closed doors, get a deal done, stop going to the media and leaking every single detail of everything.
Yeah, I agree. I've been on the players' side the whole time with this, and my frustration is growing by the week. Um, it's annoying as a fan that this is my favorite sport, that I'm basically watching it crumble in front of our eyes. Like you mentioned, no other league is having this problem. Yet it seems like almost every sport is getting ready to come back. But baseball is the only one that seems to end up in the media, drawing all this attention, all this kind of stuff that in reality fans don't need to know about, even in the slightest. There's just no point. We don't need to know. If they kept that stuff quiet, you wouldn't have so many pissed off fans right now. You wouldn't have people blaming whether it's players or owners. But yeah, keep the media out of it. Let the fans know what we need to know. We don't need to know about every deal. Usually I would say the opposite. I like knowing everything, but this is just something different we've never had to deal with. And knowing every step of the way when this is a safe haven for a lot of people has actually made it more kind of not uncomfortable, but just more frustrating as a fan, that this is supposed to be our thing that a lot of us use to escape. And in reality, it's like every single day we're just watching them fight. Someone actually, her name is Ashley Lopez. She did a lot of the videos for us, the countdown videos of the players that we posted on Instagram and Twitter. And she had, I don't know word for word what she put, but she had tweeted out yesterday that she said, watching these negotiations go back and forth is like watching my divorced parents fight over me, knowing neither of them actually wants me. And that's kind of how it feels as a fan right now. It seems like that they're both fighting, but that neither side really wants to give in to give fans what they want, which I don't necessarily think is wrong. I don't think the players should just roll over and give the owners what they want. But personally, I would just like for the players to come out and say, look, we're doing prorated. If you are not going to come off of that and tell us that you're giving us that, there's no point to continue these negotiations. Like, I just don't get it. If the players are not backing off prorated, why are we still having these discussions? Tell the league, say, either come to us with a prorated plan or there's nothing to discuss. Because this whole back and forth, moving percentages all over the place is really just kind of pissing me off at this point, if we're being honest. And I just want the players to say, look, this is what we want. If you can't give it to us, let's end a discussion and leave it there. They're not coming off their prorated pay. There's no reason to keep going back and putting all of this information into the media. With that said,
I kind of think they. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I kind of think they would back off of it, but not to 75%. Like if it was between 90 and 100, they might be more inclined to accept that.
Maybe.
That's just my personal opinion.
No, and maybe they would, but if they back out and tell the owners, like, hey, prorated or nothing, and then the owners come because they want to make a deal and go, hey, okay, we'll give in, we'll do 90 to 95%, then the players can go, okay, cool, we'll take it. Obviously, they don't have to stick to it if they say prorated or nothing. I don't want to have to keep hearing about it. I don't want to have to hear week after week about players being pissed off, owners being pissed off, owners now talking about wanting salary caps in the sport. And it's just like, this was not what was supposed to happen. This was supposed to be a discussion about how to fix the 2020 season so that way they could play baseball, they could get back out there, the players could earn their money, the fans could watch the game that we all love. And instead it's turned into an entire circus that is tearing the sport apart and pushing a lot of fans away. And these owners worry about their money now. Just wait what's going to happen if they end up forcing a 40 or 50 game season, because Manfred is allowed to do that. What's going to happen then? But with that said, we'll go into the players responding to the league's proposal. So after rejecting the league's latest proposal, the players sent a counter proposal back late Tuesday night, which included an 89 game season with full prorated pay, and we would begin on July 10th, which we mentioned is a date players and owners have already agreed on to play. Players have also agreed to expand playoffs for the 2020 and 2021 seasons, but they want the regular season extended until October 11th. However, MLB wants the season to end by September 27th due to the fear of a second wave of coronavirus, putting the season on hold again, as well as having to adjust TV schedules for the playoffs. Apparently Fox has already come out and said they do not want to have to adjust the MLB schedule. So I guess that's something that owners are fighting for, because then they're going to have to battle with NFL TV times. I would imagine come October, basketball will probably still be in playoffs, I would think, maybe, if they're not starting till the end of July, finishing their season. So they might have to be competing with NFL, NBA, and right about now, I'm not sure MLB really has any leverage to compete with either of those leagues. So unless it is the fans' favorite sport, but I do see football and basketball, unfortunately, coming back and taking all the spotlight because MLB is waiting so long to get back on the field. But yeah, they don't want to move it. However, I find it interesting that they're worried about adjusting TV schedules, because if that's a concern, why are we expanding playoffs? If you have to expand playoffs, you have to get more TV slots. So I'm confused as to why that matters, why TV schedule even matters, because if we're expanding playoffs, you've got to adjust it anyways. So I don't know. I'm sure there's more to it that I don't understand, but there's a lot of this I think we don't understand at this point. Players are still willing to play the All-Star game and Home Run Derby in the off-season as well. I still absolutely hate that plan. Hope it doesn't happen. Imagine having a All-Star game after 40, 50 games. It just seems, I mean, I don't know. I guess they kind of almost do that after 80 games or however many it is, 80, 90 games. But still, not a big fan of it. Plus, I don't even know if they have it in LA, are fans even going to be allowed to go? And to be honest, I don't really want to have to force my first time in my lifetime to be able to go to the All-Star game at Dodger Stadium and either have to sell my tickets or force myself to go and be uncomfortable in a situation because Dodger Stadium's open back up and coronavirus is still very much a thing. Who knows? We'll see. I still hate it. Players Association also agreed to accept a flat fee of $50 million if the postseason is canceled. Like I mentioned earlier, they conceded to owners that if players who are not high risk decide to opt out of the season, they will not receive pay or service time. Players in the league seem to be on the same page that if a high risk player opts out, he will still receive pay and service time. Of course, it's expected for the owners to reject this proposal because what else would happen at this point? And then the part that worries me the most out of all of this, the longer these rejections go on. I don't know if a lot of fans know this. Maybe they do. Maybe enough people just aren't talking about it. But Manfred is able to mandate a season even if the players don't want to play. When it all comes down to it, these negotiations between the league and the players are more so of a do it in good faith. Let's work something out so both sides are somewhat happy. But when it really comes down to it, Manfred gets the final say. And I'm a little bit worried about the problems that could cause between ownership and players. And I think if that happens, there's a very good chance we could see play stoppage in 2022 due to the CBA because players are going to be pissed off. And if a season is forced by Manfred without player approval, it's looking to be about 54 games or so. It could be less. They've mentioned anywhere between 40 to 55 games, which again, not really a fan. I saw someone yesterday on Twitter ask, it might have been Stacy Wheeler, I'm not 100% sure, ask if the Dodgers played 40 to 50 games and won the World Series, would it be just as gratifying? I saw a lot of fans saying yes. I had said a couple weeks ago on an episode that if everything is the same for every team, the championship is going to be just as legit. That was also with the idea that there would be a minimum of like 70 to 80 games, about half of a season. I'm not going to say if the Dodgers go and win 40 to 55 games that it's not a legit championship. I don't know how many people are going to view it as legit, which again, I don't care. But when it really comes down to it, like, are other teams even going to respect it? Because that, like, I don't care what other fans are going to say, but are other teams going to respect the Dodgers for winning that? Or are we still going to have to hear, well, it didn't count, you guys are still 30? Like, that's the thing. I want our players to feel like it means something. I don't want them to win and be like, oh, cool, we got cheated in 2017, possibly in 2018, and here we are, 2020, finally won that World Series, and it's on a shortened season where none of our fans could even be there. On a ridiculously shortened season, because 40 games would be friggin' a quarter of the season. So I don't know. That's MLB. That's the Players Association's latest response to the league. Like I said, owners are expected to reject the proposal. So that's where we're at proposal wise. Did you have any thoughts on that? Because I know.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, go for it.
So 89 games is a good amount of games. Originally, I proposed that they play an NBA season's worth of games, which is 82. Now, the MLB proposed 76. The Players Association proposed 89. That's 13 games apart. There's no divisible middle, but if you add 6 games to MLB 76, you get 82. So they're getting closer to the amount of games they want to play, which is good, and I think 82 would be a fair compromise. Now, MLB is hell-bent on the September 27th end date due to the coronavirus and the TV networks and all of that. So, like, between July 10th, which they want to start, and September 27th, there's like 79 days. How are they going to fit all these games in there? Now, you mentioned Manfred has the mandate to say, oh, he 40 games, 50 games if he wants to. That fits into that 79-day slot. Where does the 76 or 82 or 89 fit into that slot? Now, I know recently, or not recently, but back then there was talk about double headers. Maybe they can do that to add in a few extra games. I think that would work. As far as the All-Star game goes, I'm not a fan of the All-Star game and Home Run Derby at the end of the season. At this point, they should probably just cancel the All-Star game this year. It's not necessary. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of the festivities anyway. The Home Run Derby is mostly boring to me now. The most excitement was definitely Jock versus Guerrero Jr. That was legitimately exciting to watch them both. But after that was over, it was extremely boring. The All-Star game is whatever to me. The best part is they give the players microphones and allow the players to be themselves, showing their personality. Other than that, I can do without both. They need to do something else. Like, I think a few episodes ago, or when we first started this podcast, you had brought up that MLB should do other activities, and they should. Maybe, I don't know not how far you can throw, because that's kind of dumb, but how fast somebody can run the bases, or target practice, or something. But there needs to be something else than just a home run derby and All-Star game.
Imagine like taking the best arms in the outfield. I know I won't get them all, but taking guys like Puig, Bellinger, the guys with the cannons, and having some type of having a runner on second. It's got to be the same runner for all guys, or maybe you take a couple different runners because guys will get tired. But having them trying to throw like on the dot, throw a runner out at home, stuff like that, because then it shows like who has the best accuracy, who has the arm strength, because stuff like that in games is some of the most fun. Like that's almost one of the funnest plays as a fan. Is watching that kind of play when they go to throw someone out at home, finding a way to rob home runs. I don't know, something else.
I can 100% get behind that. You can have like Billy Hamilton and D. Gordon on second base.
Yeah,
like
and have him running to third. Yeah.
Puig, Ramon Laureano from the A's.
Yeah, like there's
be like a fake single, either throw him out at third, throw him out at home. But I think that would make for a lot of fun.
Yeah, something like that. It's more fun. I don't know how you could really simulate like robbing home runs, but something like that, having pitchers pitch to command, or I mean, I don't know, anything. You don't want anyone to get hurt, but taking the best arms and seeing who can clock the highest on a speed gun. But like I said, you don't want any pitchers getting hurt. But I don't know, just stuff like that, something different, because I don't hear many positive things when it comes down to it from fans about the All-Star game. It just never seems like fans care to watch it. They don't care about it. It's so boring. And I think a lot of people feel the same way about the Pro Bowl, the football game, but like the skills competition
terrible.
Is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
So I think they could learn from that. I think the NBA All-Star festivities are a lot of fun. The games are whatever because nobody wants to play defense because they don't want to get hurt. It's cool to like see the dunks, but
that leaves for highlight plays like alley-oops.
Yeah, you at least get that enjoyment out of it. The game itself is just, no one cares about the game. It's just the exciting plays that come out of it. But so we'll see what happens with that.
With the new rules, they kind of have to care about it in the fourth quarter. Since rest in peace Kobe, they made those new rules, and it's first of 24 wins the game in the fourth quarter.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This year.
That's cool. I didn't know that. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. If they do have the All-Star game, I'm really curious as to what would happen in LA if California does not allow sports fans at that point, or let's say they do and it's only 50% capacity, how the league would deal with all of that, because the Dodgers have already sold All-Star game tickets to their season ticket holders. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. We'll keep seeing every week. I keep saying that. Who knows what'll happen, but we'll just keep waiting. One thing that MLB, we've been hearing the players continuously talk about wanting to see financial paperwork from the league. They want to see where those losses of money is coming. The league is claiming they can't make much money. So on Monday, the league informed the union that it anticipates earning $2.75 billion in revenue this year, and that the players would receive about $1.93 billion in salaries and bonuses. To give you an idea, I am pretty sure it was between MLB last year, their revenue was about 10 to 11 billion. So they're losing quite a bit without fans and without a full season. And yes, the players would be taking most of that revenue, but I don't remember which player said it, but a player made a good point. These owners, it's all about taking risk. They want the players to take the risk to go out there and play. The players have been doing these things for them for years. It's now time for the owners to step up and for them to take a risk on the players that the game is going to sell well enough that this won't hurt them. This is almost a risk that you would think an MLB owner would say, I have no choice but to take, because if there's no season, you're really hurting your sport and your team, and next year that could really come to bite you in the ass. So I don't really care that owners would not make much money off of a year. It's 1 year. A lot of them have been owners of these teams for some of them decades, some of them however many years. They have the money to own an MLB team. They have the money to go a year without making profit off of their MLB team. And then last week, we spoke about Scott Boras and how commendable we thought it was of him to pay his minor leaguers who were released from their teams However, on Tuesday, it was announced that the union had asked Boras not to go through with this because it would violate the union's agent regulations. Other agents expressed concern to the Players Association that Boras would be violating regulations if he paid his minor league clients, believing the union would set a bad precedent if it allowed him to go forward. The relevant portion of the regulations states that any gifts or promises of gifts of money or any other thing with an aggregate value exceeding $500 in any calendar year by an expert agent advisor to any single player or any persons related to or associated with such player are prohibited. So instead, Boras decided to donate that money to Vote Riders, which is a charity dedicated to making sure every eligible voter has the proper documentation to vote and that they're able to vote. So yeah, we had some positive things to say about Boras last week. I have always looked for any excuse I could find to not say something positive about him because he's so good at his job that it feels like he's doing bad for the sport, but he's really just doing the best for his players. A lot of people were upset that the union did it. After reading the article, I understand it a little bit more as to why it would be an issue. Luckily, in their latest proposal to the league, the Players Association envisioned a $5 million fund to assist minor leaguers during this time, but also to help charitable organizations focusing on social justice initiatives. So hopefully owners do not come back with some BS that they can't have that in their proposal, because that's a really bad look. It's $5 million. It would have cost each team $1 million to pay their minor leaguers for the rest of the season. So this is like nothing in comparison. So yeah, that's really all I have. Before we get into the positive podcast moments of this, do you have anything else you want to say about anything we talked about?
Okay, so you had said that MLB's their earnings are supposed to be 2.75 billion or somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's a lie and it possibly could be more because of the TV? The TVs can charge more for ad revenue because there's really not much going on. So there could be possibly more money in that way.
I don't know if I would say that they're lying. I think what they might be omitting is that there's opportunity for them to make more money than that if they want to put in the effort. I just don't think MLB goes out of their way to do that stuff. Do you know how much money they could be charging for ad space on those seats at games to be showing up on television for 9 innings? Probably
a lot
more money than they'd get for the tickets that those fans would be sitting in. So I don't really feel all that bad for them. You could take banners and literally put them across the entire pavilion if you wanted to, 2 of them. There's so many things that they could do. They could play sponsorships on TV. We saw them do it last year where they split half the screen and played an ad while the game was going on. So I don't think they are lying. I think, though, that they are trying to give the minimum number as to what they think they will make because they don't want to pay the players and they want people to say, oh, well, it makes sense. You can't really afford it. When in reality, I think there's so many ways for them to market better and to make more money out of this. And they just aren't going to admit that because that would then force them to say that they'd be making more money. So I don't know. I
can agree with all of that. Also, a quick thought on Boras. Good for him that he was trying to do something noble and right. It sucks and it's stupid that he can't help his released minor leaguers out. But him donating his money to Vote Riders and still trying to do some good, I think is a really good thing, especially in this unprecedented times with everything going on. And the U.S. not having proper or adequate leadership, it's vital for all people to be able to vote.
Yep, definitely. I want to say I read in Rosenthal's article, it was something like, I think it was 15 to 20% of African Americans don't even have proper photo documentation so that they're able to vote. So that's what this charity is doing, is they're making sure that people everyone who is eligible to vote across the U.S. has all of the information that they need. So I think that's a great move by Boras with everything going on. We have heard so many advocates to go out and vote. If we want to see a change this year, we need to all hit the polls. So I think it's cool that Boras is kind of standing behind that message of the players, because I don't think the league did a very good job of expressing their concerns with everything going on. But I think Boras is doing a good job of standing behind the players' voices and not just taking that money and donating it or saying screw it, I'm donating it somewhere where maybe it's not so as vital as this is, or just keeping the money. So it was awesome by him. Bummer for his minor leaguers, but hopefully the league will accept this fund so they can get paid, because this is just more of MLB shooting themselves in the foot. If you don't have minor leaguers playing, who the hell is going to be on your big league team in a few years? Because those are literally that's the future of baseball. So I don't know. I don't get it. We'll see what happens. As always, I swear I've said this 3 weeks in a row, but hopefully next week when we record this podcast, we are no longer talking about proposals and we are talking about spring training start dates and opening day and our expectations for pitchers this season, hitters, whatever it is. I am praying that next week when we get on to record this podcast that we are not talking about any more damn proposals, because I am so tired of talking about proposals. Okay.
I agree. I think that the July 10th thing is kind of like a hard cap. Like they want to do it then. So either we're going to get a deal done, or Manfred's is going to be like, go play 45 games and leave me alone.
Yeah. They need to figure it out soon. I did notice these last couple proposals have had responses to them much quicker, whereas prior it was literally taking them like a freaking week to respond to each other, which is stupid. They wasted an incredible amount of time. Like baseball has been put on hold since March 12th or whatever it was, and we're 3 months in now and you still haven't even made like an inch in the right direction. It's just ridiculous. They've wasted so much time.
And if they want that 3 week spring training, they need to get it done immediately.
Yeah. So I'm hoping we know the owners are going to reject this latest. I'm hoping that we will have a counter proposal from them within the next day or two. And same thing, hopefully by next Monday, we've heard from the players again. And then I'm wondering if at that point it might be the end. I can't imagine this goes back and forth much longer. I think each side has now made 3 different proposals, so I just can't see this going on much farther, nor do I want it to. But with that said, let's get into our positive stuff going on right now. This Friday, Mookie Betts is partnering up with Pull Up Neighbor, which is an emergency response team that helps deliver immediate and direct resources to communities in need. And they will be giving out reusable masks, meals, and other supplies for those in need to help battle against coronavirus in Nashville, where Mookie is from. Pull Up Neighbor operates all over the country and will be doing more grab-and-go events like this in plenty of other states. So if you're needing that type of assistance, reusable masks, meals, anything like that, you can get more info at pullupneighbor.com. Another cool thing that happened was the LA Dream Center had actually dedicated their food bank in honor of Justin and Courtney Turner. After all the help they've provided in feeding families during coronavirus. So I've talked about, I think, Courtney and Justin basically every single week on this podcast, and the positive stuff that they've been doing, the help that they've had around the community. And clearly LA Dream Center is so grateful for them, that they honored their food bank. It's after Justin and Courtney and Justin Turner Foundation, and the food bank serves about 30,000 people a week, which is insane. As of Saturday, 4 days ago, they had already donated given out 850,000 meals, which is again insane. So they're probably close to 900,000 as of today. Getting there, close to it. So you can see there's an entire video where they talk about it. You'll see Justin and Courtney, they speak on it as well. You can watch that on the Dream Center Instagram, or you can watch the entire video on their Facebook page. But that's it for this week. another episode done. We are now 8 episodes in, 2 months. We've had a lot of fun doing this. We're just very bummed that we can't talk about any current actual baseball stuff going on. Once that gets going, we're really going to have some fun with this. So as always, we appreciate you guys listening. Make sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Dodger Yard, and you can find me at Randy_Radcliffe.
And you can find me at Michael Conu.
And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day, night, week, whenever you listen to this, and we will catch you guys next week. Bye, guys.
See you later, guys.